Morning, morning, everybody. Michelle is here. Michelle is here on February the 1st, 2026, on a beautiful Sunday. Beautiful Sunday. Looks really good out there. It appears to be nice and crisp. Yep, somewhat in the 50s, I guess. So I want to come on through, talk some more about the series of videos I have put out there regarding consequences and the consequences that we are facing are devastating and a catastrophe unlike anything we've ever seen in our lives. Regardless of whether it happened in the 1600s or the 2026 as we are now. It's all related, it all correlates, and it all is a part of a spinning cycle, rinse and repeat that we are facing. And some of us are going to get off that rinse and repeat cycle. And all you can do is unfortunately save yourself first. You remember going on an airplane. What is the what do they call them now? Flight attendants tell you now, or have been telling you for as long as you've been on the plane. This has been their concept. Save yourself first. And so that's the same thing about me when I decided to put out these series of videos. I had to save myself first. And so I had to come to a point of being healed. Not healing, but healed. And I'm going to keep saying that because a lot of people are kind of stuck on that. They are enjoying it. Don't be fooled. But they enjoy some of their suffering. They enjoy some of their trauma. They enjoy some of their abuse. They won't admit it, and you don't have to. If you're one of those people, you do not have to. But that's a choice. You have free will. I told you I came from a toxic environment via the work. You know, my chosen career was toxic and life-threatening for me. And more so especially for my consciousness. And that was the whole idea. You know, drive this bitch insane, make it seem as though the problems are with her, and try to get people on board to support that. And that's where it failed. So that's why I appreciate the people that really got the opportunity to understand me and love me. I know I know there's maybe more than a handful of people at my former profession who love me, genuinely love me, and they have universal love for me, meaning they care about my well-being. And they kind of snapped out of it and realized, because it was always assumed that there was always if you can say that someone's crazy, that will be the end of it. And that's true. That was done. I mean, quite often in the black culture. The minute anyone in the community or in the neighborhood say, okay, that bitch crazy over there, that person is dismissed. And they suffer because then everybody in the community is like, oh yeah, don't talk to her. She crazy. Don't talk to her. So, so the courage and the bravery will shine through if you do the work on yourself. Okay, and allow people to think for themselves and figure it out. The one thing I sense that I'm good at sometimes is breaking it down in pieces. That's why I have all these videos out there. Breadcrumbs. Whereas the breadcrumbs are not necessarily interfering, but the breadcrumbs are there to point you to blah, blah, blah. Small steps of, taking you to the truth. And that's what I did. I'll never forget, this one person that I was working with, I love her so dearly, and they know who they are. she came from a background. Okay, she came from a background. She was of German descent. Her ancestry, and so sometimes people have this misconceptions about people from from these various countries, especially Africa. God, I mean, if that country is not more abused and misrepresented, that continent, I don't know what other continent receives as much unwarranted and unproven deceptions and manipulations about that continent. The continent of Africa can fit at least possibly 2 or 3 USAs inside that continent. Okay, and so it's been used as a money grab for decades, centuries. But those people in the continent of Africa have their own issues to deal with. They don't have any time to be concerned about what the USA of America is doing. And trust me, the USA of America is doing quite a bit. Let's not go into that right now. But what I wanted to say about the process of deconstructing and why it has to be your own personal, private concern, whereas no one has to know. You're going to have to be able to multitask, because of what I said. Be able to do what you need to do to pay your bills, as long as it's righteous. Okay? Pay your bills, support yourself. Because, like, for example, like with me, I knew for a fact, as I said, I was targeted at my previous employment. I know that there were some crimes committed as well. Okay. But for this, but sometimes, I would have been delusional to believe that I could take that on any more than I am now. Some things, most effective things have to be done collectively. Okay, this so-called individual plight, this individual hero, that's a bunch of bullshit. And usually those heroes are what? Unalived, no longer here. Plenty of history to prove that. Plenty of evidence. Plenty of evidence to support that. So it has to be a collective thing. But if we all start within silently, make this a silent revolution, eventually we'll impulse together, we'll resonate together, and we'll be a force to reckon with. That's how it has to be done. So I spent some time, with the previous videos talking about the massive degeneration of our interpersonal relationships to one another. The biological man versus the biological woman, and how that there's a war it's a war developing, and it has been like that for centuries. That's why women are you don't hear too much about women in some of these history books. The women have been erased. The biological women have been erased. But if you think clearly and effectively, and read some of these books, that transgender community has always been there. But like I said, it was shaded in cross-dressing and in other terms to hide the existence of it. Okay, so yes, that transgender community have been there since the inception. Okay, but it has become degenerate over time. just as with the biological man and biological woman, degenerate, degrading, just um, I'll say criminal negative energy. I'll say that. Yes, it's just been degraded, degenerate. And that's because of the behaviors and actions. I told you back in our community, when I was growing up, we saw the cross dressers, as like I said, is what they were called. Yeah, of course there was some derogatory things said. There was derogatory things said about, more so about the black women and the black girls that were there, actually. That targeting and picking on them. And, a lot of people say, well, it's because the man was trying to get, the boys were trying to get the girls' attention. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that at all. It was behavior that should have been a stop, should have been put to that. My brothers would not dare act like that. Would not dare. Picking on women, pulling their hair, just harassing, stalking them, bothering them. Okay, my mom would not have put up with that if my brothers were acting like that. And my dad too, but more specifically and especially my mom. She wouldn't have put up with that. She raised my brothers to be respectful towards themselves and more specifically and especially towards women. Okay, she wouldn't have tolerated it. My mom was the head of the household because that's the agreement my parents made. My mom was going to be taking care of us in the household. My dad would be out providing and providing the basic necessities for us, as well as providing protection, and he protected us, no doubt about it. But the point I want to make about, the type of situations that we're going through right now, it is not about sexuality at all. It has nothing to do with our sexuality. Okay? And I told you, you can identify it however you please. Okay? What has to be understood is the biology of who we are, what we are, and why we are. Okay? And as you are deconstructing yourself, whether you're deconstructing from religion, from how you were raised, or whatever the case, your sexuality, I did that. And ask the questions, okay, with all of this happening to me, blah, 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 blah. Am I blaming somebody? Am I you have to be brutally honest with yourself and ask the questions. What's really going on here? Do I secretly, hate my mother? Do I secretly hate my father? And the chances are, because of these households came from broken families. And when they say broken, that means that in most cases, especially in the black culture, the black man wasn't there. The black father, the biological black father wasn't there. And so that left the biological black female with the responsibilities to, to attempt to raise their boy, their biological boys. And yes, that's difficult because that's where a biological man should have been. But the intention was to break up the black family anyway. That will not be admitted. To take the biological black man, the biological black father out of the home so that the black female was left vulnerable. And thus she could be what? Targeted, harassed. Okay, it's all intentional. And one day, I'm not going to hold my breath for it. I'll probably have passed away by then. One day we'll figure this all out. It was all an intention to break up the black family. And it worked. And so that's why you have these delusional people going around saying, well, why don't you just pick yourself up and da-da-da. They don't know the history, and it was erased from them. But again, you are responsible for self-educating yourself. And if you are believing some of the things that are being said without investigating it, you're just as responsible and the cause of it as well. If you're going to sit around and believe that black people wanted to destroy their neighborhoods, that's bullshit. It was infiltrated. Okay? And so many people got so desperate. You know, when you pull a black man out of his family and not give him a job, what's going to happen? Narcotics abuse, possibly. Desperation. I mean, it's all logical and could be followed if you choose to follow it. As I said with this co-worker, well, my friend, she was of a German descent, and she was, I know she was raised in a household where they were, taught certain beliefs about people. Don't be around black people. And I know that does not have to be even. I mean, I was in school and saw all this kind of stuff happening and all this kind of stuff being said, about the black American. Okay, I mean, it was there. It's in the books. Who knows what's in the books now? Like I said, I self-educate myself. I think for myself and I figure things out. And the results speak for themselves. So, but she knew what she was taught, but she also trusts what she saw. And the reason why is because it happened to her. They were attempting to drive her insane. And so she recognized that they were attempting to do the same to me. And that's like she snapped out of it. She stopped crying all the time. She stopped blaming herself, and she took them on. She took them on. And she managed to get in there and shut some of this toxic environment. But we both left at the same time. And I'm sure it conjured back up. I don't know. And I really, it's not that I don't care, but I know what happens to us. We just repeat. We'll clean up. Repeat. We just repeat ourselves. So, in relation to the transgender community, okay, as I've said, you are human beings, and you're human beings. Okay, it's just a portion of you, not all, are behaving anything. You're not behaving as such. And when I say you're not behaving as such, you're not recognizing that there are biological women, there are biological women and biological men. And some of you as a transgender believe that you can invade the biological woman and the biological man, and thus, because this is what's happening, it won't be admitted, believe that you have the right to do so. In other words, you have the right to invade a biological woman, a biological man, and a lot of you do. You invade the biological man, if he's calling himself transgender, is that doesn't matter. Believes, because he is a biological man, that he can invade the biological female because what? That's what they have been taught via religion, via whatever the case may be. So you have to reevaluate your religious upbringing or your upbringing regarding religion and ask yourself, okay, where did I pick up all of this misogynistic behavior? Okay, and I can guarantee you, a lot of the transgender females are miserable. They won't admit it, and you don't have to. They thought, well, if I, transition, that would bring me the happiness I seek. They realizing that is not true at all. I would say 99% of the transgender community, especially the transgender females, are miserable because you still are a biological man. And you still have those traits and you hate your masculinity So you felt as though if I could transition and take hormone supplements and, wear wigs and makeup, that would that would cure that. And a lot of them are realizing that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, they're probably more miserable than they've ever been as biological men before they transitioned over to transgender, or vice versa. The issues with the transgender men who are biological females is they are also targeting the biological female, but they will not dare target the biological man. All they do is they're doing the same thing as the transgender females. The transgender males are just looking in, thinking they understand what it means to be a man, and they believe, okay, if I dress a certain way and walk a certain way and change the projection of my voice, then I'm a man. Stop it. Okay, and even if you are strapping it up, come on now. Okay, come on. And the same thing happens when a biological female transitions to a transgender man. I had the pleasure to be in the middle of that particular type of transition. Working. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but if in the law enforcement environment, they allow that kind of transition. I don't know if it's still is happening now. And I can remember, there was this, this worker, co-worker or worker, we were working in the same institution, or, law enforcement is an institution. So we were working in the same environment. All right. And I knew this person identified originally as a lesbian. Okay. Good for her. But for some reason, she felt that she needed to transition over. And that was her decision to do so. I told you, law enforcement allows it to happen. They really do. I mean, ever since I've been in law enforcement, I've experienced that. So when this person was transitioning over, however, they were taking these hormone treatments, and the rage that was building up in them was unmatched. But they're still biological females. That's my point. You can rage yourself up with hormones upon hormones. You will still get your ass beat by biological men. In other words, your strength does not come with that. It does not come with that. So I know this person is miserable because this person ruined their relationship with their partner. This person was raging all the time, and because the hormone, I don't know what type of hormone mix up they were receiving, but it was tearing up their insides, their consciousness, their thinking, and all this, and it was just pure rage of energy. And this person became so unmanageable, they had to ban this person from coming into a particular building because of that rage. This person was just always upset, and something was always bothering them. And you're supposed to be happy. You chose to transition. My point is this. Relax. If you want to, you don't have to. Okay? And ask yourself, okay, well, as you are deconstructing your sexuality, which I strongly urge, what is really going on here? What ask who, what, when, where, why. Ask these questions. Why do I believe? Because it's a belief. I don't care what anyone says. If you're a biological man and you believe that you are a woman, okay, that's a belief, and that has to be reevaluated, reexamined. No one has to know, however. You can still continue to run around in the streets, glam up when you get on the social media platforms, and create this caricature of what you believe a woman is, a biological woman. This exaggeration. I told you some biological men are changing their voice purposely, to sound mechanical. So reevaluate that. Okay, take it step by step by step. Be gentle, be kind. Okay, no one has to know you're doing this and say, okay, what is this all about? This need to transition and to transform. What is that really about? And why are you targeting biological women and being throwing hate towards them, envy and jealousy? What is that all about? You want to be a woman, but you mistreating biological women and blaming, calling them ugly and saying they're masculine and saying they're calling them, calling them creature-like people, but yet that's what you're hoping to transition into. So it's massive, massive, massive confusion. That's my point. And you, as the transgender, has to, if you choose to, this is all free will. But I know you're not happy. I know you are not happy at all. Some of them attempted to re-transition. And as a matter of fact, I think a lot more will. When they realize it's not about their sexuality. It's not about whether they're a biological man or biological woman. It is something much deeper than that. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and stop right now. I'll come back and kind of dive a little bit more into that. And, help those of you that are wishing to deconstruct, reconstruct, re-examine, and live a peaceful, loving life once you know who you are, what you are, and why you are.